no real reason whatsoever, except that it seems like a thing to do. So I'm going to do two things today. I've got what's already on my board, and so I'm going to work on that first, and then I'm going to do some character design work because I've got some of that, and that should prove to be interesting today. So I'm going to go on ahead and share my screen, and you guys can join me once I figure out how to share my screen. Graphics, no. Setup, no, don't do that. Chat, where's my share the screen thing? I had to share the screen, and I can't find it. Oh, there it is at the bottom. That's why I can't find it. It's at the bottom. Okay, so I have switched applications today. And so I'm working in... hang on a quick. Where's my chat? Read my chat. I'm working in a new studio, or in Clip Studio. Boy, I'm having issues this morning. I'm working in Clip Studio, and so I've moved to a different program completely. I inked this last night, or I drew this last night, and so it's a picture of my main character, Li Chang. So I've done a couple of things since, last night's inking. The inking looks just like this here, and I'll turn off it goes like this. So that's the original ink of this. So this was what I was working with last night. I got up to this level here, and I'm really enjoying this pose. Because of the way I'm doing coloring, I've just closed off the bottom here because this is all going to go off the bottom of the page at some point in time. What you can see here is what we call our safes for these comics, and this is the title safe right here, which means that no words should be outside this middle square right here. And then this is our bleed safe, which means that the art goes to the end of right out here outside this border. And when it does, you've got all of this bleed area over here, and all the art goes out that way. So then I did a background in Photoshop using my very addictive cloud brushes, which made for a very cool background that doesn't really involve a whole lot, just a whole bunch of clouds in different colors. And so I did sort of the implication of Sakura, I guess, is really where I am. Hey, Sean, how you doing, man? Welcome to the stream here. I'm live streaming me coloring in Clip Studio Paint, which could prove to be a phenomenal disaster. So let's see how this works, shall we? So anyway, as I was explaining, this was the line art that I've got going on. And I've gone on ahead and I've done a couple of things. This background I did in Photoshop using a cloud brush, which I'm horribly addicted to. Probably inappropriately addicted to that brush too. So I may have to go to Brushes Anonymous. So then I took that, and the first thing I did was change my ink color to brown. And this is an old trick from Miyazaki, strangely enough. Miyazaki did all of his pen work on cells in brown pen. It gives it a softer look, and it looks a little more gentle than the hard black pen, which makes it very, very rough. And you can actually see that when I add the color in. You can see this is a much rougher than that. It makes it a much calmer and gentler. It's not as abrupt a color choice, but it does mean I have to go back through and dink with the things that should be black. So I'll have to go over here and get my G pen back out. And like these patches here on the side, they're definitely black. That's not black at all. I knew that. I was just testing you people. You all won. You passed. Well done. Okay, so just going back in here and putting this her rank insignia back in black. So do that. Well, not do that. It's being a little too sensitive. There we go. That works. And I'm not being too careful with this at the moment because I just want to get this figured out. So I got that. I'm going to go like this. And the rest of it then, once I've got that figured in, let's go back in with my brush pen and just clean up that line. But the closer I am to this, the better and easier it is for me to hit the mark and not mess it up. So I wanted to just get that center section in because that would take forever to just do with just a pin. So her patch there and there. And then I'll go up here and do the same thing with this. Now I use maquettes, which are 3D rendered mannequins, because otherwise this is so hard to get this angle correct, especially for the Unity patch. This is the Bellatrix patch here. He has on her other shoulder, which is like this, and that sucked. Don't do that again. Okay. Look at these. Never had the steadiest hand. It really is irritating. And I think I only don't have a steady hand because I never did what my teachers told me to do in art class and draw from the shoulder. And so there's a reason why artists raise their easels up, and that's because they want you drawing from your shoulder and not from your wrist, because your wrist is not as stable. So it's an interesting thing. Good morning, Matt. Good to see you this morning. Hope you have your coffee. We're talking about drawing from the wrist versus drawing from the elbow or from the shoulder. And in the case of, like in school, they teach you to raise your easel up into a vertical position so that it's so that you're forced, by just the nature of things, you're forced to draw from your shoulder. But then I fatigue so quickly. It's like I just get so tired after a while there. So I guess it's a laziness thing. I don't know. But hey, I told you to take that and this color. You saw an eraser. That's why. Okay. So that's sort of a thing. I was also explaining, Matt, to the folks, well, to the all two other people who are here. One of the tricks I've taken from Miyazaki is to use a brown liner pen. So the lines are done in brown. That's something Miyazaki does to give everything a much gentler feel. It's not as abrupt or sharp as it is whenever you have, like I was showing before, the absolute black lines. They're much, much sharper and much more abrupt. So putting in the brown lines helps a whole lot. Okay. So now that I've done that, and I think I might just keep her rank insignia as it is, although I think I haven't decided whether this rank insignia is metal or not, but I guess, maybe it could be. Maybe it is. Maybe we'll make that decision right now. Because anything could happen, right? So, I'm going to go in here and just make this into a a metal like this. We'll zoom in. And metal is so dramatic. It's like metal dramatic. Okay, that was a bad joke. I admit it. But you may have it be brown. But it's going to end up like that. And then you'll end up going the other direction, putting in a shine right here, like this. There's invariably a light source somewhere, which makes that a whole lot better. So, all right. Now I've gotten pretty much the rough setup. I've added some lines to her hair to give her hair some depth and shine. And on this is my shine layer, and I'll actually call that. Okay, hang on, guys. Oh, okay. They're not signaling me. That's important. Okay, sorry. I am monitoring another call over there with my stepmom to make sure she's doing everything. She's not very technologically adept, so I'm helping her with that. And they were waving a minute ago, and I wasn't sure whether they were waving to get my attention or just waving to be who they are. So they were just waving to be silly. So I'm back on the shine layer, and I have up here, when you look on the hair, in this area up here, we have, it's not quite a white because I didn't want to put white directly in her hair. It's this kind of grayish color. I do want to get rid of as much of this as possible, though. This black. You don't want any black between that and that line there. So I wanted to do that, and I'm just adding that in. But when you talk about things like her eyes, we don't want to use a dull gray. We really want to use like the white shine. So going in and working on her eyes, I'm going to put in a very dramatic highlight like this. And then you put along the cornea and like that. And that helps a whole lot. We haven't put any of the dark in yet, but the lens is raised like this. And then we just do this. Because our eyes are not perfect, and they never are. And then we'll put that there, which is just a little bit of it, and we'll do the same thing over here, right? We got a little bit of this going on like that, and then right along the edge of the cornea. Because again, our eyes are just not perfect. And that gives just a little bit of realism to that, which makes it pop. I haven't put any shadow in yet. The shadow is on a completely different layer, so we're gonna have to do that, you know, as a yes, especially the older that you get, the more your eyes become imperfect. But we're gonna go on ahead and put in some color, and I want to add another layer in here, and this is going to be my dark layer. And because this is a cover, I'm going to actually put in a couple of layers of dark. This isn't like the other piece that we did yesterday, which was a card, and it was much smaller. This is a cover to a comic. And so I'm going to be doing a number of layers into this, and we'll dig in a couple of layers, and you'll see what's going on. But for this, and because for the same reason as the Miyazaki thing, I'm not going to use black like I did yesterday. I'm going to use sort of a darker brown, like right over here somewhere. increase the brush size quite a bit. And then I'm going to bring this down to about 30, 33 thereabouts, right? And I'm going to put this in right here. And this is going to be just my shadows, basic shadows. And I'm not going to be that careful at the moment because I'm going to go back in and cut them back out later. So, just get some of the areas that I know I'm going to need the shadows in, like under her nose, right? And maybe a little up here above her eyes. And we'll have to go back and see whether this is working or not, but we may not like it. We'll have to see, because that makes her look really super dark, but we'll figure it out. And we'll come back around a little there, and then across the back here. And then I'm going to leave one side of her body like there's double light, right? So instead of going all the way to the edge over here like this, I'm going to come down the middle like that. And this gives me because there's more than one light source, and I'm getting the feeling from the way I've designed this picture that she's outside. And outside always has more than one light source. So when I go on the side of her body here, I'm going to leave this area right here open. All right, and I go along here, onto her hip. And I'm just going to go roughly around that part of her fingers, because I'll just cut those out later. The smaller brush. Now, if we want to look at the way that her chest is set up, and it's like that, because the angle of her shoulders, her chest is like this, because you can see because her hips are like this, right? So we go this way, and this way to look at the lines of the way that her body is set up, right? That's why everybody's like, there's not proportion once you draw the picture. Yeah, there's always proportion. You're always working on your perspective. Perspective is what I meant to say, right? So knowing that that's where that is, I'm going to do the rounding underneath the breast right through here, like that. Because I really want to emphasize, because otherwise it just looks weird that there's this, what's going on with this form up here. There's no form to it. Going along down here, and I'm going to draw all the way out and off the page. Right? So the same thing over here. I go like this. And I go like this. And come around like that. And then do that. All right. Then we're going to come around this side here and do a little bit of here, because I've got hair. It seems to be covering up some of that. So I want to make sure I illustrate that. And I'll smooth it out. And then I'll go back in with the eraser. Get myself some more eraser out of this, right? And I'll just come along like this and do that. Right? And then the underside right there. And take and clean up the tops of these fingers. And then this, we all know that fingers are round. So we want the fingers to be round like that. Round, round, ground. I wonder if they'd be friends with me. All right, and come through like that and like that. And then cut that like this and like that. All of this is just knowing your anatomy. Knowing how human bodies work. It's not all about naked women. I swear, people always get the weirdest ideas about drawing classes. Why are you doing that? Because actually anatomy is difficult. And good morning, Brian. What goes around? I have no idea what you're talking about, Brian. So we got this guy going on here. There we go. The things that I'm also kind of working with at this point are, this is the World Renum. That's the planet that is the main planet for the story. I'm going to give it a little bit of shadow too. But just like everything else, I'm going to give some highlight on this edge. Try to kind of give it a double highlight coming in like this. And that gives it a 3D feel. Now heading up to her face. And the adorable little button nose that she's got, but I'm pretty sure that it's probably a little too much going on here. So there we go. Put in one more right along there, and like this. So a lot of this here is that we're establishing a very strong shadow line. I didn't mean to just do that, but hey, you never know what's going to go on in the world. There we go. Oh, you're quoting Elmer Fudd. I'm not watching it. So there. Everybody else can watch it, but I won't. I'm going to draw. So I know going into her neckline here, we've got a lot of potential shadow, and the shadow's all screwed up here. So I'm going to straighten it out. This is a mandarin collar. So that collar is going to have some dramatic line to it. So I'll get rid of this line because that's not the right line. And then this is a highlight. And then right up here is a highlight too. And then we'll put underneath here a little bit of light coming in from the side. Then her collar casting a shadow. And we've got, there we go. I'm still not 100% sold on that shading up there on her eyes. It makes her eyes look weird, so I may change my mind. Her nose looks right, but the eyes don't. I think the eye shading is not going to work, so we're going to have to go back in and fix that. So that's okay. So we'll take out the shading in the eyes here, and I'll come back in later with a different strategy on this. But I want to attract attention to her eyes anyway, so I don't want necessarily to obscure that too much. And like I said, we're going to have a couple of layers of shadow in here. So this isn't going to be that big of a deal. Here we go. Oh, hey, Brian. Here's the background for this. So I've got the background going and everything on this. So the background is a complete abuse of the cloud brush. So I've been totally abusing the cloud brush. It's very funny. Anyway, so going in with the dark. And continue on with this. Got to be careful with dark because the dark is, because it's a brown instead of a black, one of the reasons that I use black for shadows all the time is because it's easy to adjust the color back in. Once I've decided that I'm done with this, I'm not going to be able to do the dark again. So what I'm going to end up having to do is go to my ink copy side and put in a splotch of brown out in the corner. And the reason I do that is because this isn't a true black for the shading. So since this isn't a true black and there isn't a pure color, like up here, this is pure color. So I've got the dark set for a 31%, right? I could even probably go to a little lower, like 25, or I guess 24 is what we're going to get, right? So I don't want to mess that up. Thanks, Sean. I don't want to mess that up and have that be on the wrong layer. So I'm actually going to do this and go through the back like that, get this light going on that way. So this is the first initial darks we're putting in here. Like this. We'll clean up all of this. And now I need to go in and clean up the breast line, because it's going to be a shadow like this to accentuate, and then through and up like this, through up, bleh. And then I'm going to have to go back through and undo that part. There we go. Maybe. I still think I want this. There we go. And that gives a highlight there and a dark light there, which is really what I want. I think I probably want even more than that to really accentuate this part. Going like that. And then I'll come in here and erase this part there and that part there. Go through here and catch just the front part of the arm. And that sculpts in the light really well. Now, one of the other things I'm looking at here is right up here, I have this, the cuffs that allow her to seal her suit. Oops. If she's ever in trouble. So those red dots are, they're suit seals. And so the one thing I really want to do is make it look like it's sticking out. So we want that and that. And then her hand will be casting a shadow across it like this. And then I'll do that. And that. And that allows it to look like, at least partially, oh, her thumb didn't get colored. It'll make it look like we've got, it's got a lip to it. I actually feel like looking at this, like the lip is going the wrong way on the bottom side. So I'm going to fix that here in a second once I'm done doing this. This lip is going the wrong way. Should be like this. And it's because it sticks out like this. So I'm going to do that and this. And I'll go back over and do that. And then I'll give it a highlight. There we go. So now that we've got that in, we've got a highlight on the front side of her body really good. Now we're actually going to do the honest to goodness highlights. So under here, I'm going to add another layer, and this will be white. And just as I had done before, I'm not going to use a pure white. I'm going to use a brownish white. And this is the same reason why I do the brownish white with everything else. And for the same purpose, I'm going to add that brownish white up here so that I won't lose track of it. But on this side, I'm going to do this. This I'm going to put as a screen, right? I'm going to drop it down about 50% or 51%, I guess. And this is just going to be the front half of her body. And just like I did with the dark, I'm going to come back with it and do the other side, or do the cutting it back with the eraser. So if it bleeds over like this, I'm not terribly worried. Although I probably will have to work a little harder than that, but that's all right. Backup time. Okay. And then we'll go along the face here. And that may be what I need, is simply just let the highlight go in and these become the dark sides of that. A little bit on her ear up there and along her neckline like that. Now I'll go back in here and check in on this and clean it up. Oh, and then we need to, of course, do the other half of Renim. There we go. It's a sphere, guy. Yep, actually, yeah, I'm using Clip Studio Paint because Brian Cahan and I were talking about it last night, and I thought, crap, I really ought to get adjusted to Clip Studio Paint because otherwise I'm just missing out. Up until last night, I was a big proponent of Clip Studio Paint because it was not a subscription service. But then last night we found out it's a subscription service now. However, I believe Brian and I are still believing that we are grandfathered in. So it's not a subscription service for us. But for everybody else now, you guys all have to pay $4 a month to have this program. And I frankly find that to be appalling. This is becoming annoying. I'm being bled out by all of the things that I'm paying $5 or $4 or $3 a month in. I'm getting kind of tired of it, personally. So up here we had all of this, and we're arguing over who's got the shadow. I'll let the dark have it up here. Yeah, right? I mean, I kind of feel bad about getting all started up in here. I love Clip Studio Paint, and frankly, it's worth it. I mean, it is worth the money if you were to put the money into it. The problem is I am now paying for this streaming service. I'm paying for Adobe whatever. Yeah, I never got GIMP figured out, and I don't know. Let's see, I don't like the way this looks. There we go. I never got GIMP figured out, and I really should have, but I didn't, and so yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a thing. So, and come along here like this. Get her thumb and her finger rounded off like that. Round the fingers off. Space. round the fingers off like this, do the same thing over here. And then, like I was just saying, undo. Like I was just saying, we clean up around the edge here so that there's no conflicting problems. If I really have a problem in here, I can always come back in and just touch up that zone. And, like I didn't catch the top of her fingers, or for that matter, the inside of her hand like this, right? Because really we should be looking at that. Says David, Procreate's free. Yeah, I know, Procreate's free. I actually do have an iPad now, David. Somebody gave me an iPad. It was really nice of them. It was a family friend. And they were like, well, we've upgraded our iPads. You want our iPad? I was like, yeah, I'll take your iPad, man. That's cool. They're like, yeah, that's cool. So here I've actually gotten into exactly the trouble that I was worried about. So I need to fix the colors down here because it's kind of weird and screwed up. So I'm doing this, and I had to go back and catch my brown again, my dark brown. Otherwise, this would have looked really weird. So I went back and caught my dark brown there and brought it back because I didn't fix this before. I already did Procreate. Ha! Dad joke for the day. And so we're coming in through here. Oh, that is not what we want to do, because this needs to be more like that. And when you've got fine details like a hand, you really want to get in here and work on this. Work the situation a little bit. So then I've got a second light source that I'm working with. I don't get it. I love you, David. I love you, man. So this finger is closer to us, so I want to put more like this so that it indicates that it's closer to us. I'm going to zoom back out. There we go. So now we're going to go up to our other hand. One thing I really do like about this, I'm going to check. There we go. Now we'll go to light, and I've got to do the same thing I did before. I've got to go grab my light color, which is over here. And I can zoom back. And one thing I really do love about Clip Studio is that it does a good job. We're down to small versions. It does a good job of holding tracking to where my brush is. So when I want to, here we go, get this in here. Happy little shading. Happy, okay, Bob Ross channeling again. Here we go. And we'll put this there. We'll come back around and give some depth to these fingers. Come back around like this. There we go. There we go. Just like that. With many programs, it doesn't track where your mouse is. So you'll zoom out and then you'll zoom back in and it zooms into the exact same spot. With Clip Studio Paint, you zoom out and then wherever your mouse is, that's where it zooms in. Now, boy, I love that. So, where are her nails? So, welcome to Manga 101. I don't know why, but manga characters don't have nails. Sometimes they will have just the smallest indication of a nail, but they don't generally have fingernails. It's a really weird thing, but it is totally in style. And it's, of course, it's not all of them. I've seen some manga artists that are so detailed. They put in, but that's usually what they call shoujo and not shonen. Shoujo is girls' comics, and shonen is boys' comics. And that is a gross generalization. Because, of course, you might like the shoujo a whole lot, and you're a boy, and vice versa. And the girls may actually like shonen comics, and they're, but I feel like that's just now it's just become sort of how we define the two comics. And it's really less about the gender and more about just the styles. There used to be, in the 80s, it really was very defined, but now it's not so much. The styles are still the same, but they're not gender related anymore. Or at least I feel like that's the case. Or maybe I'm hoping that's the case. I mean, I would like to think that some people are much more advanced in the world than others. Brent's here. How you doing, Brent? Good to see you, man. So I am working on Bellatrix Rising cover at this point in time. So it is not, in fact, Friday yet. So anyway, continuing on with my little rant about shoujo versus shonen. Shoujo, because it started out as a girls' comics setup, they usually have nails. But shonen don't. And it's still very weird to me that this is the case, but this is the case. Since I draw shonen style, I don't generally put in nails. Unless there's some reason to. I mean, if there's like, oh, look, I broke a nail or whatever, then I would, I would definitely decide to put the nail in. Again, I'm not making a statement myself here. I'm just talking about what I've observed in Japanese comics culture. It does not reflect the actual beliefs of this particular artist. So, coming around the edge here, I'm going to come up over into her eyelid just a little bit. One of the redesigns on this character was that she's supposed to be from a culture that specifically was Chinese and was trying to hold... Right? Isn't that weird? No nail anime. Who knew? Specifically trying to hold the genetic pool to be completely genetically Chinese, and she rebels against it in the story. But it's still, she's still going to be ethnically Chinese, looking and the way that she is. So I'm going to shrink this down now. We're into detail work. So because she's ethnically Chinese, I felt like my original designs of her did not look Chinese enough. So I had to go back and push the epicantral folds in her eyes and increase the lip size a little bit and give more things that looked traditionally Chinese. Apparently means that I've gone through and I'm going to do a little bit here, just a little bit for that underfold there. Right? She doesn't have a lot going on for that underfold, but she's got a little bit going on. So moving along through here, We're going to have just a little bit of bleed over from her lips in the shadow there. And then when we go to this highlight, the shine level that we were at before, we can actually take this and we'll put just a small amount of shine on her lips like this, right? And maybe even just a bit of a shine on her nose, which gives, because young people have very shiny skin, I guess. I don't know. Elephant, rhino, I don't get it. But if I put this shine along the outside edge of her face like this, it'll really make this section pop a lot. Actually, right above her eyebrow there. It'll make her face really pop. Her face will be shinier than her jumpsuit, but her hands might be some shiny. There might be some shininess out there, so I want to go on ahead and do that as well. So I'll put a small amount right where her nails would be. And this is one thing that does happen. Sometimes they'll imply a nail like that. Just the implication of it. Right? So, really, sometimes the thing just doesn't catch. There we go. Now putting the background in. I don't feel like it's matching the background as much as I'd like it to. We'll have to go back and fix that. But we're getting there. Well, it is 10:48, and I've got about 10 minutes left in my live draw. I'm going to do a couple more things while we're here before I get going. I had a light highlight side going on this side of her body. This is where the light's coming in from this side. But what I want to also do is add another highlight from this side, right? This is a completely new tactic for me. So we'll do secondary. And that's going to be the same thing, right? We're going to take it and make a screen and do about 35%. And for this one, I'm going to pick a different color. Now, if I look at the environment around her, there's a lot of pink in the environment, right? From these trees that are back here, these trees. So I'm going to try and see what happens when I get a pink on here. I mean, is that going to add to this like that? Is it going to look like I've just added white to the other side? Or is it going to bring this picture together? And that's the real question, right? If this secondary light is a pink, right? I'm going to see here. Look at that. Take a look. I think I want that to be pinker. Does that make sense? Pinker, closer to this color, right? Especially since it's so light on this outside edge that like that, even a little right there. I could even color in like this, right? And all this really did was just draw together these two things. And if you ever look at shadows, they double up like this, right? Now, I don't know whether that helped or hurt. I may ultimately decide that's not a smart move. But for right now, this is where we are. So there's that. Kind of come around here like this for her collar. Now, up here, there's a few things I wanted to do with. I don't know if I like that pink. That pink we may get rid of the pink after some analysis here. I may decide this is a bad idea, but that's all right. We do want It's called environmental lighting, and everybody has it. The problem is that cell shading lighting isn't the most ideal place for that. And probably what I will do is something more like this, right? You take a white layer and put it there, and that'll make the background not quite as dramatic. It's still there, but it doesn't overpower her. Going into the light here, I've noticed I've got some bleed over, which I wouldn't have seen if there wasn't a background. So there's that. That's where I'm kind of headed with this. Now, one of the things we are going to do, we didn't do this before, was mess with her eyes. Because her eyes they're not deep at this moment. We're going to deepen out those eyes. Her eyes are actually that dark brown that you see some folks have, which is just so super dark, right? So we're going to go back in here. We're going to go back in here and make a big mess. Go back in here, and we're on the ink copy wide, so I want to be very careful in here. We look at the light here, and we realize that it's going to strike back here. So I'm going to leave that open. Right? The light comes through the eye, and it strikes back here. So this is all going to be in this lighter color, which was the whole point to begin with. And that'll give this eye some depth. And then we'll bring her eye back up to the correct color, because her eye really is kind of dark. Right? But that gives this, the light coming through here strikes the bottom of the iris right through there, but it's bowl-shaped, as all good anime eyes are. Unlike our eyes, I've noticed that anime characters do not have real eyes. I mean, that's just the way the world right there. Everybody should just accept that. Anime characters have no real eyes. They do not realize anything. Ha ha ha! Another dad joke. Okay. Moving over here, same thing. Right? You look at this eye and you realize it's going to strike right here. Regardless of this highlight, that highlight means very little to tell me what this eye is going to do and what the lighting is on this eye. Right? And then I'll just come up and over and back through like this. And there we go. Then under. There we go. And that makes her eyes much more like the very brown eyes that you'd expect. Yep, fake eyes. The very brown fake eyes that she's probably got. But our brain registers those eyes as correct. And she looks like she's got just a little bit of reflection inside the eye going in. And the light, you can just barely see the light coming through the eye there into this iris. So, the other thing we need to do is get out onto the shine layer and get off the pink, because that's just not going to help us any at all. And just put some shine in right here. Right? All the way through here. And then definitely on the water. This is the planetoid that is the part of the planet, or this is the main world of my story. This is Renim. And I have a map of Renim that I have rendered out, which has all the continents and everything on it. And so all I did was wrap. I'm going to give her the Shining. Wrap a sphere with the map, and then render it out, and then just traced the coastlines. So this is actually accurate. If you look at the map of Renum that I have made up, this is a sea, and that's a sea, and this is that other sea, and everything like that. Renum was a planet that was struck a lot by asteroids before it finally settled into being a Class M world, if you will. And so it has a lot of craters on the surface that filled with water. And it's kind of cool because it makes it look like that. And it really does look very much like that. So there we go. This is where we are at this point. We're about 3 minutes to 11. I'll check in with you guys tomorrow and we can do this some more and you can see where we are at that point. But we're getting pretty close to done here. I mean, I'm going to go back in and clean up some stuff, but I'm feeling pretty much like this thing is about ready to go. Thank you, Brent. And then all I need to do then is put the number, story and art by Guy Davis, and then the title up there, Bellatrix Rising. And we'll have ourselves a pretty nice cover going for this. And that's where we are. Let's see if I can get this. There we go. Much more like a... There we go. That's what we're after. So, you're welcome, Sean. Thank you for joining me. And thank you for joining me, Brett and David and Brian. I appreciate having you guys with me. And we will see you... Oh, hey, Patsy showed up. Hey, Patsy. You showed up just as I was about to leave. It's good to see you, though. I'm going to go ahead and switch back to my live camera. And once I figure out what button I need to push to do that, I swear, so many buttons. Hang on. Whoa. I lost all my buttons. Because I'm supposed to remember to do the caption thing. This caption. There we go. Put that on there. Now I can switch back to camera mode. Okay, so there you go. That's the cover. I'm going to be doing a live stream tomorrow at 11 o'clock. I'll be doing my normal live stream at 10. And then at 11 o'clock, I'll be doing a live stream with Pepper DeLuca. And we do an artist check-in every week. I'm limited because I can either broadcast every platform I've got, or I can co-broadcast with someone else. So those are my two choices. So tomorrow at 10, I'll do my normal live stream then, and I'll be doing some more artwork. And then at 11, I'll be doing my artist check-in with Pepper DeLuca. So if you want to join me then, I would love to have your company while I draw. That's, I think, what I'm going to probably just start doing. I've got to draw every day. You might as well join me. So, I'll tell you what I'm doing, and it makes it a little easier and a much nicer thing for me to do. So thanks for joining me, and I'll see you tomorrow when I figure out what button I need to hit to stop this thing. What button do I need to hit to stop this thing? How do I stop this? Oh, finish. Goodbye.